What it do? Thank you for another tapping in for another midweek tap in with your host, King Crowder, man. You could be anywhere in the universe, but you chose to be here and tap in with me. If you're new here, share the live, comment, like, subscribe to the channel. I'm so glad to have you here. And most importantly, we got a lot of things to talk about tonight, so I'm going to get into it expeditiously. First things first, though. Book of the week. Phenomenal read, y'all. Blood in My Eye by the great George L. Jackson. Blood in My Eye by the great George L. Jackson. If you don't know George Jackson, he was the incarcerated, the prison Malcolm X. His story is phenomenal. What he stood with was phenomenal, and how he stood up for justice in San Quentin prison and got many foundational Black Americans unified and codified. Phenomenal read. Phenomenal read. Let's go ahead and get into the topic. Nobody was talking about reparations until FBA stood on business. Now everybody wants to ride that wave. I don't know about y'all, man, but if you grew up in America, if you've been in America all your life and in political politics systems, if you took history classes, if you took courses, if you studied the history, I don't know any other time in my lifetime when the subject of reparations has been at the forefront. Like many things in America, we make them hot. Foundational Black Americans make things hot in this country, and everybody else follows. Politically, musically, socially, personally, lingo, on and on. In today's subject, we gotta really pay homage, discuss, and also do some damn straightening on this subject. The first thing that comes to my mind, y'all, was a politician, a Democratic politician said Democrats want reparations for illegal immigrants that have been traumatized. Democrat representative says illegal immigrants deserve reparations for how they have been traumatized by ICE. Not the formerly enslaved of this country who hurt and harmed by Jim Crow. Not the Black Americans that had to survive when their fathers and parents were inside the incarceration system that we have in this country. Not the Black people that are still suffering from economic deprivations. We are willing to give benefits. We are willing to pay cash to other illegal citizens. The first thing I want you to pay attention to, have y'all ever heard of other representatives like this ever beat the drum, sound the alarm, speak with their full chest, pound on the table, speak with such enthusiasm about what a community like FBAs deserve? No. You have a Democratic representative going on stage with her full chest saying, yeah, the way we treat these people, FBA all day, shout out to Big Philly. No, we just have intellectual discourse, and you are more welcome to come on here and stand on business about that. She looked like that. You stupid. But as we continue to dive in, y'all, you know we don't duck no smoke around here. We don't. But let's keep going. It gets worse, y'all. I'm going to play the video in real time because, remember, we don't just bring receipts here. We bring all of the above. And I want y'all from the foundation to hear this MF, this lady, have the audacity to say what she said. Pay attention.
Then we also need offensive actions.
Did she say we need offensive action? That means they want to set up in a play, work on initiatives, and figure out a way to help them. Remember, offense is an attempt to score. That's what she's saying. Let's decode it.
Around prosecutions, we need real accountability, because at the end of the day, the people that have been inflicting this harm need to be prosecuted.
Wait a minute. Have we ever had prosecution going harm against black victims like the people that went against the gentleman that was running in Georgia? Where the DA knew the McMichaels was doing some harm because she knew them and she got off scot-free? Was that same energy the same? When the McMichaels got off for killing our brother, I know his name escapes me, tell me in the chat, that was jogging, and the DA did it illegally, got them off their charge, tried to. Did they have that same energy? But we are having the energy on live TV, fumbling the damn mic, breath probably hot, all in it, saying that what another group of people are owed because they have been traumatized the past 10 years? Insane.
They need to be brought before us.
Her name is Miss Japaiba. By the way, y'all know she is of an immigrant background.
And they need to be held account for the trauma that they have created, and we are going to have some form of reparation.
Pay attention to how many times we're hearing this word being buzzed, y'all. Can I say something? All the FBAs, I want to give y'all a round of applause. Remember 7 years ago when they would say, you niggas will never get reparation. Stop begging the white man. You niggas will never get paid. You will never get money. Why were you complaining? Be happy about what you have. Remember that? Now we have open politicians, open foreign governments, open people speaking our lingo, our words, our discussions, even going to the UN trying to speak on our behalf. And I wanted to break down this article because I believe it was important, number one, FBAs, because when we talk about this subject, we got to understand why the UN and the engravement of crimes against humanity happen and what we learn from it. Number one, we learned that the UN and National Assembly voted to recognize the transatlantic slave trade was the greatest crime against humanity. A move that advocates to pave the way for healing and justice. And the article keeps going. The resolution was proposed by Ghana, how can you pose a resolution if you haven't made it right first? Ghana, let me slow cook y'all for a second, Ghana. If you want to do right by the foundation, if you want to show that you really are trying to do your rights and wrongs and make things right, how about you lead the initiative by paying the land first? How about all the reparation claims you are going to the UN discussing, demanding, everything that Jewish citizens get from the state of Israel, free land, free money, free travel, free initiative to get themselves assimilated, citizenship that is easy without red tape? How about you lead the way? There's nothing worse than you trying to speak on a subject, Ghana, and you are not leading by example. The reason why the UN heard you and it fell on deaf ears is because you are not leading by example, Ghana. Ghana, if you wanted to say that you really believe that Black Americans deserve reparations, how about you pay some form of it? You have the land. You have the locations. You have the area. You have the money. I'm not saying it has to be the largest amount that we expect from the United States, but you made plenty of money from those tourist attractions you've made. You've made plenty of money from the hotel and the other services. So before you go back and forth talking about what reparations need to be done, using our lingo, following our words we did to make it hot, how about you lead it by example? And once you lead it by example, you will understand when the FBA stood on business and made things happen, why it was so important. But we didn't only start this movement. We started the lexicon of reparations all around this country. But I noticed everybody is starting to ride that wave. But they're not riding it from genuine action. They're riding it from their benefit. They will benefit from reparations in many forms and many actions. They are using that word as a gimmick. FBAs will not let you hijack. We will not let you take over. And we will also remind you how You were disrespectful when we first started. I wanted to share these videos. I wanted to share these articles, and I wanted to talk about it because our great teachers, our great scholars, and our great philosophers break down why reparation and subject is so deep. And one of the greatest videos I wanted to see is that, like I always do, provide y'all scholarship and information. If you do not know who Dr. Claude Anderson is, I highly recommend you get his book, Black Labor, Right Wealth, or Powernomics of His Country. He is a great teacher. He is a great scholar. He is one of the founding reasons that opened up my mind about the subject of reparations and also subjects of the foundation of his country. I'm going to let this video play some while I give my commentary.
Never have existed in this country and been maintained without the full participation of the American tribes. That's why they started calling them civilized, Rock, because they began to say, you quit hunting in the woods and running wild and get yourself some land and get yourself some slaves. So Indians became slave hunters, slave traders, and in the final analysis, all civilized tribes, the Choctaw, Chickasaw, Cherokee, and Seminole Indians, they all fought with the South to maintain slavery. And so therefore, and they got benefits.
Did you catch that? Native tribes, quote unquote, in this country fought to maintain the system and gain their own version of reparations. Only the black natives, the ones that were victims of the slave trade that were put into slavery, never got anything. It is a missed history that was taught to us inaccurately by thinking it was that way, when actuality, they made treaties and deals and benefited from it. Great scholarship by Dr. Claude.
From it. And that led to going back to the earlier question you asked me about reparations. And even after the Civil War ended, the Choctaw and Chickasaw were still holding about 12 or 15,000 slaves even after the Civil War ended. The United States government sent in troops saying, you got to get rid of this slavery and set black folk free. And they set up what's called the 1866 Indian Treaties with these 5 civilized tribes, which says that black people in this country must not only turn them loose, they must get benefits. They must get forms of reparations. Going back to your earlier question, you must first of all set them free. 2, you must give them an option. And this is for all black freedmen and all blacks who lived in the Indian Territory and all black Indians.
That is one of the agreements that we don't talk about or highlight in history enough, y'all. The subject of reparations has been talked about by our scholars for a while now. Generation Millennial, Gen X, Gen Zs have elevated the conversation and discourse as we see, and it has stuck in the American lexicon and news cycle. But the subject of reparation has been since Dr. King, Malcolm X, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad spoke about independent-based economic systems. The word reparation has always been there, and we knew that economic restoration was needed for Black America. That's a component we always miss. So when anybody talks about that subject, about it's new or it didn't happen, they lying. You can correct them easy.
You must set them free, allow them to have membership in the tribe. You must give them, let them have access to all the resources on the reservation. You must let them also be tax exempt. You must let them have free education.
Shout out to all y'all, man. I know y'all in the chat. I'm just letting it vibe. Good evening to y'all too.
You must also let them be able to give them $150 in cash. You must give them 160 acres of land. And in present day times, those black Indians under the 1866 treaty should be getting, they could also hold gambling casinos. Now, this country has never carried out the full mandates, but yet we're still honoring it for Indians. Right now,
Did y'all catch that? We have never given out the mandates to have those casinos and economic justice, but we have never kept up our end of the bargain for the foundational Black Americans of this country who had an ethnogenesis. That has never happened. They're on the books. They made the side deals with the other nationalities and groups, but as far as the restorative justice for those that are old, not requesting, not asking, those that are old due to the crimes against humanity that was done to them, it's already in the book, and Dr. Claude Anderson is breaking it down.
Benefits that Indians are getting in this country are getting it from the 1866 Indian Treaty, because they took up arms against the United States in the Civil War. They wiped out all previous treaties. Now, every year in the White House, we get about 560-some white Indian chiefs, which in history they call $5 Indians, because 90% of the people calling themselves Indians nowadays are not really Indians. Those are whites passing as Indians, because they paid $5 to the Dawes Commission to get their name on the Dawes roll so they can get all these advantages. But every year they get.
Also a historical fact. I don't know if y'all ever heard that thing, being from the South, $5 Indian was definitely a word or a tool used very often.
Get invited to the White House, and every year they got an approximate $3.5 billion every year, even that Obama's been in office. They got money into the Federal Indian Bureau. Now, see, if you were to talk about reparations, black folks have been getting all this money all these years too, but they got shut out because the Indians in 1938 they sent a letter to the
keep those dates, 1938. Keep those dates.
Department of Bureau of Indian Affairs saying, how do we shut black folk down to make sure they never get any reparations? And that letter floated around in the federal government from about 1938 to about 1941. Then it went to the Secretary for the Department of Interior, and the Department of Interior looked and says, said, how do I come up with a scheme to shut down blacks so they get no reparations in this country? He said, what you do, you Indians come up with a new concept called a quantum blood law, which says that black folk are not entitled to any of the benefits of the 1866 treaty in terms of reparations unless they can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that they got 1/4 Indian blood in them. And we make Indian blood.
I want y'all to think about that second. There was a bill passed around for many years on how to exclude those of the foundation of this country. The historical documentation and information has been around since 1938, almost a century ago. We know that was that was post Tulsa, post Rosewood, and post those other ethnic cleansing acts that took place in this country. I want you to think about how diabolical all this information is being presented, especially with those times that were happening in this country, man. Our history is so deep.
Sacred like Jesus Christ's blood. And therefore, they've been shutting blacks out all these years. That's why they didn't get any reparations, to go back to your earlier point. And the last point on reparations, you asked me earlier about a blueprint. This country's always given reparations to all groups except black folk, even though black folk were the ones who built the country. They built the bridges, they picked the cotton, they built the highways, they built the government buildings.
That's why it's always funny when that conversation about immigrant comes up, y'all. And it's very true. If other people work so hard, establish so much, and do so much, why is it that most other countries are not as established as it is in America? Because it's easy to maintain off the foundation of something that's been built. It is hard to remove and start it from scratch. It is hard to mix and master from scratch. A lot of people don't take into perspective how much enslaved more for Black Americans were in this country, making things shake. And when you can make a lot of things happen when you got 400 years of not paying nobody.
We were the backbone of this nation. But now, so in the Marshall Plan, we gave billions of dollars to Germans after World War II. We gave under what's called a Point 4 program. We gave reparations to Japanese. We gave reparations to American Indians. We gave reparations to everybody. But
thank you to the excellent, the phenomenal, the wisdom of Dr. Claude Anderson. Let us cook, family. Dr. Claude Anderson gave us a historical snapshot on how the journey for reparations has been built and developed in this country. Now, in present times, we have a different way that the reparations movement is so strong and how we have filtered out the issues around us. Remember, there were the Candace Owenses, the other non-FBAs who discouraged us during the 2010 era. The 2010 era is when we started to see Black children, Black people being harmed in an escalated fashion by law enforcement. Prior to Barack Obama leaving the White House, that's when the reparation movement really took off. It took off because of frustration, lack of investment, and also we were not familiar with the non-FBA ideology as much. Obama was the first non-FBA president because he really invested in every other community except what Black Americans who supported him the most did. What did this do? We decided that we must take our future into our own hands. Along with Trump coming in office, we began to notice that Obama did not do anything he said he was going to do, and he did not want to. Why are you so strong against that, King Crowder? The reason why is because Trump exposed to us in real time, whatever you want to do, you can get done. Executive order, anything that is unpopular, whatever you want to do for your people, you can. For example, it was extremely unpopular to see people in 4K get caught going against the White House on January 6th. And you know what Trump did? He said, free the guys. First day into office, he freed all of his supporters that went against that notion. What did that show Black Americans right there? It showed us whatever you want to do, no matter how unpopular, no matter whatever you want to do, no matter how they feel about it, if you have your base behind you and people that love you, you can make that happen. How does that foreshadow where we are today? We learn that it does not matter what they say politically. The people that are aligned with you mentally is what matters so much more. That is when the early start of the foundation of reparations movement began to boom, began to grow, began to blossom, began to develop more. I will say strictly for my era, this is around the time 2015 when I graduated from college, where that energy was even in my skull. Like, man, why ain't we got restoration justice? Where is that energy? Right after George Floyd protests coming up, the brewing and other things in this country, millennial generations began to get affected and the psychological impact began to grow. Why is this so important, y'all? You got to understand, we got to shout out our founders, man. The founders of the movement, the Jason Blacks, the Dr. T. Hassan, the Tariq Nasheeds, the Afro Elites, the Professor Black True, the Phil Scotts, all the older elders that have planted that seeds in all of us, and now they have begun to blossom and grow. Why is that important? It's important because right now, we know reparations is going to happen. We know it will happen in our lifetime. We know that our leaders know about the word. We know that our leaders understand how the word works. But what we see is the disrespect of the hand, like they always do. Because they are saying reparations to illegal citizens, reparations to people who don't deserve it, reparations for people who are not even qualified to get the benefits that many Black citizens deserve and deserve to be a part of with. And they even negotiate what these words and titles mean. Follow me for a second. Like, I'm going to show you another Dr. Claude Anderson clip. There is actually a discussion currently about the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment. And like many of our Black scholars have said, I'm going to let you watch him break it down, who it was meant for, why this discussion is so pivotal, and why this needs to happen, especially with the exclusive topic of reparations getting back in our lexicon.
And those civil rights laws was written strictly and exclusively for Black people. That's called the Slaughterhouse case of 1872. And then later on in 1879, the Saunders case said the same thing, that the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendment civil rights laws were put in place to protect the ex-slaves in America, the Black population. They should not be entered by anyone else and be misused, because if you let other people use it, that's how whites come up with this thing about, if you're going to try to take back what we took from you, that's reverse discrimination. So that's why it's a joke. They have all these other groups coming here being classified as immigrants and white immigrants, and again, being able to use the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendment. That was strictly for Black folk and ex-slaves. If they're not ex-slaves, Native Americans, ex-slaves, Native Black Americans, ex-slaves, they have no entitlements to the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendment of the civil rights laws. Neither would women entitled to be under there. Women got all their rights. Women all the way through slavery. White women had all their rights. Only thing they didn't have in 1850 when they started the civil rights movement, and when they started the women's movement, they were looking for the right to vote. Why? Because they said we want to have a right to vote even if we don't own property. Because in the up to the end of the Civil War, or really up to the 1919, white women had to own property to vote. But white women who did own property have always had the right to vote. Even during slavery, white women had the right to vote if they were property owners. And so what I'm saying to you is that the immigration policies, the civil rights laws of this country have been misused and abused, and the primary perpetrator of that has been the United States Supreme Court. And here's what I'm saying about the United States Supreme Court. The United States Supreme Court is a guardian of racism in this country. Their primary responsibility, all the way back since they were appointed in 1803, was to be able to misuse and guard and maintain slavery and the subordination of Black folk in the country.
Shout out to our major scholar teacher again. And if you don't believe what Dr. Claude Anderson is saying, I want you to look up 3 court cases. Sanford, B. Stratford, I'm sorry. Sanford, I'm gonna come to the name again. He was a former enslaved trying to get freedom. What's it called? Plessy versus Ferguson is one. Sanford is the United States editors, and also the Integration of the School Act, y'all. They are all going to be major milestones about the Supreme Court and show you how the Supreme Court feels. Why is all this important, King Crowder? Why is Dred Scott? There we go, brothers. Dred Scott decision. Dred Scott versus Sanford. Excuse my language. I had to look it up right quick while I was talking. Why are these landmark cases important, King Crowder? They are important because when we talk about a historical context on how the reparation movement is formed, shaped, and grown, and why do people want to ride the wave? If you do not know U.S. history to a T, Black Americans have an activism class. That means we have a group of people, you and me included, that actively discuss ideas, positions, thoughts, discourse, and also how we stand and hold each other accountable. Many other groups do not have this discourse, do not have this conversation, and also do not have an ability to stand and boldly express how they feel. Many other cultures that you meet in this country are taught to assimilate, be non-confrontational, don't cause an issue, go along to get along, act white. You hear these trinkets in other cultures very often, not in FBAs. We're taught to express yourself. We are taught to earn what you keep. We are taught justice. We are also taught to stand on business. And a final thing that many FBAs have in our pocket, y'all, most people don't have, we don't bite each other. You must remain original. You must have a different sound. When we hear artists or music or anybody copy each other, we don't like it. We prefer originality. We prefer creativity. We prefer new and innovative ideas. Why is it such a big deal? Because a lot of times when we credit things that are done inside the United States of America, we don't give the credit to the foundation enough. The foundation have created the ideas. The foundation have stood on business as far as how judgments and laws are going to happen. The foundation have changed our policy, our decisions, and public things and how we have access to them. And the foundation also change and deter how we communicate with government. Why is such a big deal? When it comes to the case of reparations, we are building the claim. It's going to be a monumental thing. Remember, if you do not know the social hierarchy in this country, I advise you to read Isabel Wilkerson's caste system. She does a phenomenal job. She wrote about how America has a caste system just like any other countries. Black Americans and the foundation are at the bottom. You have the immigrant class who do the assimilation, the buffer class, and whites on the top. We are placed at the bottom because we do not assimilate and go along or get along. Many foundational Black Americans have our own spirit, own attitude, own mindset. The thing, like we had during the civil rights era, is now we are more unified than ever. We are focused. We are locked in. We see political discourse happen every single day. We're not being distracted. We are not seeing those shapes from a media that once had a play on something have as much sway as they do. The decentralization of platforms has made it phenomenal so you can hear multiple voices and multiple perspectives when you hear issues and conversations being discussed. What does that mean? That means we're stronger. That means moves are going to happen. That means the intellectual discourse is working. That means the delineation era is happening. Remember, nobody was talking about the word reparations until the foundation made it hot. Now, everybody else wants to ride our wave, check our status, and try to mimic what we do, but they can't. The only thing they could do is sit back, watch, observe, and see it happen in real time. And like all things that happen in this country, when the foundation makes something happen, everybody else will follow. Next, I saw something today, y'all, and I have this conversation all the time because we kind of forget after we finish school and we start living our life how much things rise and how much things change. The George Washington University is a private school in the city of DC, the district. Shout out to DC, lived there from 2014 to 2017. Great city, phenomenal location. George Washington University, a top graduate school, a top undergraduate school, cost of tuition for the 2026-2027 year will be just over $98,000. $98,000 per year. $98,000 will be the cost of one university in our lifetime. Why am I sounding an alarm on this? Stop pushing your daughters and sons to go to college and get in debt. Stop pushing them to get $400,000 under their belt before the age of 25. Do not tell, preach, say, or go along with that notion that is a requirement. Until these prices, until these rates change, until it has to rebalance itself, please do not send any Black young girls, any Black young boys to a four-year university. I'm not opposed to community college. I'm not opposed to another way of making it happen, but you are insane to pay $98,000 per year for an undergraduate degree. Before that child graduates, they could be potentially be $400,000 in the hole. We already know the job market. We already know how challenging it is, and we already see the professional landscape. Why am I stressing this? We have to update our files. All parents, all people in our families, stop pushing all little girls to do that. I'm going to go a little controversial. Most fellas, shout out to my dogs, who talk about the dating landscape mention that economically it is very challenging to date when you have almost $200,000 in debt. Think about that for a second, y'all. I'm looking for a mate. I want to pair. I want to bond. I want to establish a relationship. I want to create a family. Before we buy a house, before we get a car, before we travel together, if you have $400,000 looming over in you, that is a huge burden to place on one partner. That is something that we need to talk about. That is something that we need to highlight, because I still see our young girls, Black girls especially, with the college mentality. And I'm not saying it's not good. As a father, as someone that will have his own little girl, no, sir. Baby girl, I love you, true. You ain't even born yet. You will not go to college and get no damn $400,000 in debt. No, sir. I would much rather spend that money for you to travel for a year. I would much rather do something that's going to help you be a much more well-rounded person. But to go get that much in debt to learn nothing and not get employed, I disagree with it wholeheartedly. Why do we need to talk about this, King Crowder? Because we have to educate and unlearn what it was to be successful in our lifetime. Millennials are the parents. Gen Z are in their 20s. Gen Alpha is 16 and under. They have to be hearing right now from us to say, it is not worth it. It is not worth it to go somewhere to be $400,000 in debt before you turn to age 25. I don't care what the damn job is. If you a doctor and you got that much, maybe. A surgeon, maybe. A 4-year undergraduate degree? An MBA? Hell no. Spread this word. Teach this message. Relationships, people, and families have to be a priority. This college bubble, let me make it bigger. $98,000 per year. If you are telling your kids to do that, you a bad parent. I'm going to say it straight up. If you tell your kids to go to school and sign that graduate debt loan form and agree to make that much payments in their lifetime, you a bad parent. I know. I'm going to say it to you because we need to protect our children, man. The amount of predatory practices, the amount of people taking advantage of our kids, the amount of people who do things that is not even disrespectful to the extent, but seeing those numbers, y'all, as a college graduate, 2 times, it don't matter. That is crazy. And we got to beat the drum to say that. It is insane to tell somebody they need to pay $400,000 to get a degree. It is. It is insane to tell anybody that is even realistic numbers before we get reparations, before we get to that point that we're free and we understand each other. That number and that information we see, held to the no. Rebuke it, y'all. Rebuke it. Rebuke it. Next up, man, when I see things that interest me or kind of make my mind, kind of make me think, I want to show a video. I think it's always important. Y'all know me. I'm pro-black families because I believe that is something that matters, because a lot of us are maintained and not raised. And y'all know Leslie Jones, comedian, entertainer. Protect your little girls' minds. Protect who they can watch TV. They should not be watching Zeus Network. They should not be on Instagram following the Shade Room. And they should not be listening to people who talk like this.
I think marriage is legalized slavery.
You do?
Yes, I do.
Say more, because if I'm thinking about slavery and I'm thinking about marriage, there are two different images that come
Absolutely
into my head.
not. I don't think, I don't know how you don't. Man is, especially if he's expecting you to be a trad wife, he might as well pull out a whip.
I want you to think about how disrespectful that is to our ancestors, number one. To say, no matter what you feel, right? But to get on a platform and talk to other young ladies like this, to shame them of them wanting a family, y'all have to understand, this is a political-based agenda. I want y'all to see something. The black families are always under attack. I want you to think about this for a second. We always talk about black women. We always talk about black men. We never have an open conversation about the need for black families. I'm not saying what type of black family you have to have. I'm not saying what black family I even prefer. But I'm saying black families where children are being raised are constantly under attack. If it's not by ideology, if it's not by sexual orientation, if it's not by philosophy, if it's not by disrespect. Anytime families for black people are talked about, it is always a negative connotation. It is always, why do we need it? It is always being publicly disrespected. And you have women right here who have the ability to speak, that can go on open air and say these things.
In a chain.
Wow. So there are young people watching who might be wanting to get married. What would you say to them?
Don't
get married.
No.
My advice will always be this. If you don't encourage our young ladies to be married, if you don't encourage our young fellas to be married, what do you encourage them to do? You encourage them to go through life and have children and not pair up? Do you encourage them not to have children? Do you encourage them to do what? Ladies and gentlemen, my young folks, pay attention to me. Tap in with Uncle Ray. If somebody says no, they must provide a solution to you. If you say no to my perspective of my idea, you need to have an idea as a rebuttal. Follow me. Okay, you don't want me to have families. What do you propose I do? I don't want to go to college. That's $400,000 in debt. What do you propose I do, Leslie Jones? Tell me what you would recommend in my lifetime of Gen Z, Gen Alpha, millennials moving forward, not to have relationships, to be casual, to have children and be casual. What do you propose we do? You could say, I don't want to have families. That's fair. But to tell other young ladies that they don't need to have none, that's bad to me. I want y'all to pay attention to these signs and what y'all see. It may not be impressionable to you because your mind is formed, you're an adult, you have your own way of thinking, but you must guard your young ladies and young men from hearing this perspective. You must guard them, because if nobody's talking about this much, we have a family crisis. We have a marital crisis. We have a family crisis. We have a family legacy issue going on right now. King Crowder, why are you so confident every time you say that? You ready? It was a conversation happening this Saturday. A young fellow of mine, Gen Zer, young man, college graduate, nice young man in the H, told me out his mouth, I have never been to a baby shower where the couple was married. I have never been to a baby shower where two parents were actively there. I have never seen a successful relationship of my age outside of my parents. It threw me off for a second. So I went around asking the other young guys of that age, and only 1 out of 20 have seen one. So I stopped and thought, that's a small sample size, right? We got to disregard the older generation that are believed in families and they got married young. And I looked at the study. If you had to guess millennials 35 and under, the marriage rate, what would you say it is? If you had to guess the relationship rate for 25 and under, guess what it is? That's your homework for tonight. The numbers will shock you. The information, the details, everything that we see being pushed is seeds are going into action. We are seeing children being affected. We are seeing mentalities change. We are seeing lifestyles being altered and many things happening before our very eyes. Why is it so important, King Crowder? It is so important because right now, check the TikTok, check the information. You are seeing ladies, rightfully so, complain about single events, complain about matchmaking, complain about having a legacy, complain about not having no one to pair up and build with. You are seeing it happen as a repercussions for what you have to deal with. And nobody tells you that the things you have to deal with as you get older, you do not want to experience while you are younger. Where is the only place in your lifetime that you have an opportunity to meet young people, marriage-minded people in your age? High school and college. Outside of that, y'all, you got to compete. You got to compete with every ethnicity, every nationality, every other framework, every other person thinking. You have to put on your boots, put on your legs, prepare yourself, your chin straps, and you have to compete on a daily basis. And why do you have to compete so much, y'all? Because you have stories like this being reported. If you have not new, update your files, baby. Update your file. How much of a cold world it truly is outside. Oracle, a financial tech giant, laid off between 20 and 30,000 people on a Tuesday morning. That is roughly 18% of their global workforce. They sent an email stating, with no prior warning, that their system access has been revoked. And immediately after that, they are going to free up almost $10 million in cash flow to allow their systems to grow. Oracle, one of the biggest companies in the world, sent an email to almost half of their employee staff by saying, hey, we're replacing you, we're changing you, and we no longer need your services. I want you to think about this. All those Oracle people that got laid off, where are they going to go? If you work for Oracle, you're in this economy, you're in this current workforce, everybody's applying and going to jobs, where are you going to go now? Where? We have to understand how much the landscape of these jobs are shifting in real time. They literally sent the email saying, we are sharing some difficult news regarding your position. After carefully consideration of Oracle's current business needs, we have decided to eliminate your role. They said that email, y'all. As of today is your last working day. We are grateful for your dedication, your hard work, and the impact you have made during your time with us. After signing your termination paperwork, you will be eligible for severance packages subject to terms and conditions for the plan. You have seen an email through DocuSign, and we will address it with details and immediate action. Let that marinate right quick. You go to work, you get dressed, you get ready, you mentally prepare to see yourself, and first thing in the morning, somebody sends you an email stating that you have lost your career, your job. You could have been with this company 10 years, 20 years, 5 years, any amount of time. There literally is no loyalty out there in the world right now. Why am I stating this so much, King Crowder? I'm stating it because we literally have to preach to our children that relationships are something that you lean on during harsh times. When you're low, when I'm low, when the money ain't flowing like it was, we lean on each other. This story of Oracle is real. Because if you by yourself, you in a metropolitan city, you got debt at the wazoo, and you just got your severance package from Oracle, and you live by yourself, what do? A, try to find another job in this economy. which is possible. B, you pack it up and go back home. C, you lean on your partner. Or D, you have no other options. So when I talk about these type of things in relationships, man, we have to understand we are in a digital age where massive job transition is going to happen. And as much as we don't like to say, the whole point of the partnership and the love thing is to lean on each other. I'm not going to say it's not going to be perfect. I'm not saying it's not going to have a personal possibility in your life, but it will teach you something to make you more marketable, skills more accessible, and hopefully the ability to handle and predict change. Next up, man, all the chickens have come home to roost. The chickens have come home to roost. Oh, man, this story right here was deep. If you do not know who this gentleman is, he is to go by the name Ebro. Ebro has been a legendary hater for young black men, young black change, young black innovation, and he is a part of the displacement theory. He is having a hard time on his own. Pay attention.
Oh, now things are tougher. You know what I'm saying? We're just ELR. We don't even have the cosign of the heritage logo. You know what I'm saying? We're not traditional media anymore. We're just some people on YouTube, so it's a lot different.
Hey, don't
That
say
is
it like
true.
that.
They may act different out here.
No, Laura, I'm telling you, people are acting different.
I know.
You haven't experienced people acting different?
Yes.
Somebody I've
Or they are responding to you the way they always felt, Ebro. You have been a legendary hater. You have been speaking against the reparations movement. You have been talking negatively against FBAs. You have been given some energy that has been sly, slick, and sort of disrespectful. And now, the people that don't want to deal with you don't have to. You got to get it out the mud just like everybody else. And you have to adjust.
known for 30 years the other day. I was talking to them about some artists they work with and me wanting them on this show.
Uh-huh.
And they were like, yeah, send me some details about the show.
Nah.
We gotta send out a press kit.
Of course you gotta send out a press kit, man. Why you think you special, cuz? Thank you, Barbie. I appreciate you. Keep tapping in with you. It's a pleasure to have you here. Hey, but let me keep going. The nerve of this cat, man. You gotta get it out the mud just like everybody else, baby. You gotta work. You gotta do it. And can we keep it funky, y'all? Look at the setup. As a fellow YouTuber, Ebro, how do you think that you get to skip the line, bro? You indie now. You gotta do marketing, distribution, editing, small business claim, maternal, legal. You gotta put that work in. How you gonna think that you get the benefit or the leverage when you have been disrespectful? No, he hasn't. King Carter, he gave his opinion. No, yes, he has. I remember the situation with Kodak. I remember the situation with Uzi Vert. I remember him saying international acts were going to take over that wave. What happened to the Afro beats? What happened to the Caribbean music? What happened to Tyler? Y'all told me that they was going to be bigger than Beyonce, and they fell off. You were behind that, man. You had many bad takes. You had many bad opinions. You have been disrespectful, bruh. And now you whining, complaining that people are giving you that same damn energy. And I love it. I love it because that's how the world works. When you disrespect people, you should be disrespected. You have shitted, talked down upon, disgraced, talked crazy, thought you were better than, disrespected other indie acts. That's on you, bruh. You had that New York snob to you. And as a down south cat, all of y'all feel that way. That's why the music been trash. That's why the takes ain't been that good. Tell me the last great New York City interview. The last time I checked, the last 5 has been from Atlanta in the South. Y'all don't even understand to catch the wave about what's going on right now. The speakers, the orator, the feelings. are out south in the West. In New York City is so caught up on politics and ego that they ain't pivoted.
Nah, bro.
That's where we're at now.
It's underrated. People get weird, man. And Ebro made a great point yesterday. I hit you guys up to be like, yo, how cool is Rhea? She immediately hits the collab. She got 7 million followers.
Think about this, y'all. You are mad because delineation and people respond to you the way you respond to them, y'all. Let's keep it all the way funky. Y'all are guests in the culture. Guests are supposed to be overly nice. Guests are supposed to be overly complimentary. Guests are supposed to be overly supportive. And y'all had some nasty disposition to you. And I believe it's another creator. Let me let this video stop and shake. That said something that was phenomenal about you cats. Shout out to this young brother. You know, I like to give full context before we speak. He gave a great and honest commentary. Fair use.
I have a question. What happens when you work for a platform and you spend years building up their audience, but neglect to build one of your own? And at the same time, you talk down on other content creators, saying that they're not real journalists, or they don't contribute to culture, or they haven't really cultivated anything. This is what happens.
Oh, now things are tougher. You know what I'm saying? We're just ELR. We don't even have the cosign of the heritage logo. You know what I'm saying? We're not traditional media anymore. We're just some people on YouTube, so it's a lot different.
Hey, don't
That
say
is
it like
true.
that.
They may act different out here.
No, Laura, I'm telling you, people are acting different.
I know.
You haven't experienced people acting different?
Yes.
Somebody I've known for 30 years the other day, I was talking to them about some artists they work with and me wanting them on this show.
Nah.
We got new media or new content creators or the next generation. Because one day you may wake up and you may be chasing the same goal that they've already achieved. Never speak down on people because one day the tables may turn.
Beautifully said, man. You speak to everybody the same, Foundation. Speak to the janitor, the cooking staff, the cleaning lady. Everybody you meet, you treat them with respect because you don't know where they may be in life. You don't know where they be 5 years from now. You don't know what their ambition and desire is. You don't know what their love, their story is. Make sure you show people love, respect, and admiration that is embedded in our culture. Our roots have translated over time. That is why we have reinvented our music, our culture, our staying power, our energy, and what we mean for. So when you have others coming into the circles, others who wonder why they are not getting the love and admiration they once get, you got to understand they don't stand on FBA business. And standing on FBA business is a big deal. It's a big deal, and I believe sometimes visual representation about the difference between us and other people are necessary. This is not a punch down moment. This is a highlighting moment on how FBA culture is extremely different. These are immigrants being removed out of the state of France. It is hard to watch, y'all. I agree. But it is a teaching moment about the differences of cultures.
Please, I beg you, I won't cry. Please.
Okay. For the next, sit down, please. No. Go back. Okay. No. I don't accept it. Please, go back to sit. Please. Okay.
I don't have anybody to go to. No.
All of this is because they've been told to go back to their country.
Pour le moment, on ne va pas insister, elles refusent leur présentation au vol. Donc là, c'est manifeste. On va attendre que le vol soit clôturé pour caractériser le refus d'embarquement. Ensuite, elles vont être transférées.
I have no idea what language he's speaking, but the video, y'all, was about a couple that has been caught in deportation office. And what it showed to me immediately, y'all, was we take for granted how on code the effects that have laws in us, things have affected us, the love, the respect, or admiration we have towards each other, that if somebody tells us that we have to go back to America, We don't cry. We don't whine. If somebody tells me I have to go back to Virginia, I'm going to go. That's the home. Now, would I love to live there based on the lifestyle? Not so much because it's the country. But would I break down, be in tears, and cry about being forced to go back to where my people are? I want you to think about psychologically how different that is. So a lot of times we have the conversation with the non-FBAs about reparations, and they truly don't believe it. You have to understand, because psychologically, they never had a Jim Crow movement. They never had a Black Power phrase. They never had a civil rights movement. They never had a self-belief that I can lean on you and you can lean on me. There's a lack of mutual respect among their class to know whatever we need to get done will get done. So when we speak with that fervor, that energy, that chest, that enthusiasm, it is because we have a culture building with each other. And then among the FBAs, our culture is standing on business. Our culture is creating a wave. Our culture is being innovative. We don't ride. We make it. We build it. We develop it. We cultivate it. And we establish it on our own. Why is it such a big deal? It is such a big deal because when we talk about the important things that foundational Black Americans have done, we can look at our histories, our scholars, our legendary act, French. Oh, okay. Shout out to you, Lady Sovereignty. I'm glad she know how to understand it. I ain't understand. I ain't gonna lie. So I'm glad Shorty said it was French. Shout out to her. The one thing that was really insightful to me when I see stuff like that is that mentally, when we have conversations among people that have never had their spiritual movement, that spiritual awakening, that spiritual mindset change that we have had. Like I tell people all the time, man, when we speak about our Jim Crow eras, our wrongs against us, and things that have happened to us in this country, we took the lemons and made lemonade. Jim Crow movement made our culture more solidified. I know we always look at it as in the opposite way. It made us on our Black Wall Streets. It made us be innovative in a white nation. It made us seek our own individuality. It made us go against the culture of trying to assimilate and be like. We chose to stand the other way. Most other immigrants do not. Culturally, they're taught to get along. Mentally, they're taught just to breathe and not cause conflict. That is why the heavy sense of assimilation is on that side. But the beautiful thing about the love era and delineation movement, it is highlighting what we have done. It is making a standpoint to separate on our philosophies, our activism, our teaching, and of course, reestablishing our way. And if you don't believe me how serious it is, like I had someone ask me about earlier this week, you know me, y'all. When I talk, I don't just speak out of nowhere. I'm very well read. I'm very well researched. And most importantly, I love to learn, about our own history. If you do not know who this brother is, he is the great Malcolm X, and I want him to speak on what he thought about the sophistication of other classes.
As I pointed out when I was during my traveling, that nations look, African nations and Asian nations and Latin American nations look very hypocritical when they stand up in the United Nations condemning the racist practices of South Africa and that which is practiced by Portugal and Angola, and saying nothing in the UN about the racist practices that are manifest every day against.
You know why they don't say anything, y'all? Silence is a form of agreement. Mixed messages, take it as no. When people are not solidified on whether they support you or not, take it as they don't support you. Unless you say it with your chest, you on my side and you rock with me, I'm assuming that you don't. Don't allow any nuance, gray area, what's it called? Unknown tones. No, sir. Malcolm X is showing, even back in the 50s and 60s, how serious our cultural perspective was. We see the lack of assimilation on the other side. We see the subtle disrespect. But now we are just stamping it. But the words, the lessons, our scholars and our teachers have taught us, we now have just starting to play over and over again. And remember, silence is a message. No message is a message. No agreement is a message. I'm learning. Let me let it keep playing.
Negroes in this society. Even in South Africa, those Africans aren't faced with bayonets and aren't faced with police dogs. And when I was in Beirut, I saw a picture on the front page of a Negro being beaten in Tennessee, on the front page of the paper in Beirut. When I got to Cairo, I saw the same picture of a Negro being beaten in Tennessee. When I got to Lagos, I saw the same picture. So were these African nations knowing the brutality that is inflicted upon black people in this country, simply because those black people are trying to get what the Supreme Court said they were supposed to have 10 years ago? I would be not a man. If I was in a position to bring it in front of the United Nations and didn't do so, I wouldn't be a man.
Well, shout out to the great Malcolm X. The words and message hasn't changed, y'all. The philosophy among the tether class, the non-FBAs, the people that undermine us, and people who try to ride our waves has not changed. They have shown over and over and over again throughout history who they align with, what they believe in, and also what point of history do they want to stand on. What we have to do as the foundation is to, number one, spread the message, make sure we're concrete in the message, stand on business and make sure that nobody else can ride our waves and take our benefits, tighten the language, and stand firm on our beliefs. They don't have to support us. As long as we support each other, it's enough. Remember, during the civil rights movement, we had the low numbers, but we made things happen. Right now, in our time frame, in our lifetime, we are starting to see the same change and the same thing starting to happen. But the difference is we have different ways of mode and communication. We have other ways to filter out the BS and filter out our message. And we are standing firm on what we want and what the government initiative is going to have. Remember, we have a creative side, a new energy on what the energy is going to be about. So we will no longer tolerate disrespect. Nobody was talking about reparations until FBA stood on business. Now everybody wants to ride that wave. What that means is that we know the wave is working. Now that the wave is working, let's go ahead and concrete guard against it. Make sure we share, make sure we support, make sure we love, make sure we uplift, and make sure, most importantly, we read our scholarly information. We are in a long, upstanding battle of philosophies, political agendas, and also what the new mode is for Black Americans. I hope you learned something this evening. I hope you liked the live. I hope you got to share it. I hope you got to spend time with me. I hope that I was entertaining and insightful to you. Now that you're here, like again, I'm going to go ahead and share the book of the week. I'm always here. Not only to just give you game, I want you to read it yourselves, y'all. George L. Jackson, Blood in My Eye. Just finished the book last week. You know, anytime I read something that's game changing, the mind changing, I think it's a phenomenal read. Please add it to your library. Next up, next week, y'all. Next Saturday, if you are in the H, I will be having a co-ed mixer. We will be having our co-ed mixer. Our co-ed mixer will be taking place in Houston, Texas next week. Let me go ahead and show my dogs the flyer for everybody that can, will, and can make it for the group BNBC. The picture, the information is all available. Next Saturday, celebrating over 650 Black men officially with the group in the angle that we have developed. Yes. So over 650 brothers. Our next event is going to be a collaboration event. Ladies can come, other group members can come. We are going to be celebrating it with a game night, successful. What are we doing all this for? We're doing all this for because we're going to have a Feed the Block event in May. My little girl will probably be born around that time, so I'm trying to make sure we fit everything in the schedule. But we got over 650 brothers now as an official mind soul that is a part of it. We don't just talk, we also show what our actions and what we're supposed to do. Can you show the book again? Of course. Blood in My Eye. George Jackson, phenomenal author right here. If you need me to send it to you, I got you. Blood in My Eye. Phenomenal read, George Jackson. He has 3 other reads. I love this author, man. Ghana just read it this week. It was definitely a good read and something you need to add to your repertoire. Let me go ahead and get in a better light. George Jackson, y'all, for one of the subscribers, I wanted to see it for Blood in My Eye. Add it. Trust me, it's a game changer. Slow read, somewhat outdated as far as the things and concepts that he's talked about, but I loved it. You know what I mean? I really did. But like I said, BMBC game night is the next major move for me that we got going on. I will see you again this Sunday for another edition of Live on Sunday. Thank you for tapping in with me. Thank you again for watching all the lives. I'm here just to help my people and send it to you. I hope you found the information useful. I hope you found the information worthy. Of course, you're welcome. I hope you found this information very important to you because I want you, number one, I want you to learn. I want you to learn. I want you to lead. I want you to teach, and I want you to help your people. And remember, it is not only your duty to spread the message, to help people to read and put the work in. It is your obligation. I am your greatest host, King Crowder, man. I want to thank you again for tapping in with me for another edition of Live on Wednesday. Until next time, call your daddy, text your mom, text your brother, text your cousin, text your fam, and text your loved ones. Let them know you love them. Be one. Until next time.